So, my goal here was to do two things. A new project that I'd absolutely never done before, and to try it without any sort of planning. I suppose that last part isn't anything new for me, though. I wanted to make some coasters for a friend of mine using some spalted alder that I got from my brother. He gave me like 200 board feet of it for free from his property, so that's a gift I'm not going to turn down, ever. Now, I've seen YouTube videos about how to go about making coasters, and I thought, okay, I can do this. So I got a nice piece of wood and measured it out. I figured I'd do 8 coasters and make them 4 inches square. So I measured out the wood to 20 inches. I figured that would give me a little bit of cut off at the ends in case anything goes wrong. The board was not flat at all, so since I don't have a jointer, I had to glue it to a flat piece of melamine and then run that side through the planer. That would give me a nice flat surface to work off of. Pry that off and clean up all the glue. And then run it through the planer again, but on the other side. And there you go. That gives me a nice, perfectly parallel surface to work from. Also, since I don't have a jointer, I used my jointing jig that I made for the table saw. So I just run this through the table saw like this, squares up the one side, then I can flip it over and run that squared up side along the fence and get a perfectly milled board. So my thinking was that I'd get a board with a nice face grain to work with, and then I would resaw it on the bandsaw. Using my homemade fence here, squared it up to the table. Dust collection. And then run that puppy through. I was actually pretty impressed with how even both sides were. But then, that's when I noticed my mistake. Because alder is such a soft wood, it started to cup quite a lot. And you could just feel that it wasn't very sturdy, you know? Not something you want in coasters. So, yeah. Well, back to the drawing board, I guess. So, back to my pile, did much the same thing over again, measuring, planing, doing all the jointing and whatnot, but this time with the intention to cut some strips out and laminate it. I figured a laminated board would be less susceptible to cupping. Then I cut strips to about 1 1/4 inches. Laid them out, and glued it all up. Now, I'm using just regular wood glue for this. Nothing special, no Type Bond or anything. And so far, my coasters seem to have done really well. But if you want to go crazy with like Type Bond 3 or something, that's up to you. And this is where the old saying that woodworkers can never have too many clamps is really, really true. It doesn't seem to matter how many I have. I always find myself doing a project that just is always short a few. So after the clamps come off, scraping the glue, running that through the planer again just to make sure that everything is nice and level, and then I squared up the ends. Now for some reason I cut the pieces into 4-inch squares before running them through the bandsaw, and that just seems odd to me. Really, I should have just sent the whole piece of wood through the bandsaw in one chunk, but that's not what happened. Now, truth be told, this did not work out for me at all, because I didn't run it through in one large piece. None of the coasters were quite the same thickness, and they were just too small to send through the planer at that point. So I ended up doing everything a third time, and that actually worked out really well. Third time's the charm. Since I shot this, I've done a whole lot more coasters than that, and I've actually found that resawing on the bandsaw doesn't give me the best results. I now opt to use my table saw instead. It doesn't cut the whole way through in one pass, of course, so I end up having to flip it, but it gives me much cleaner faces to work with, and I have to plane off significantly less. To finish the coasters, I just used some spray-on poly that I had kicking around. I would not do that again unless I might have to try a different brand of it. The one that I used, I didn't like how it finished on the surface. Since then, I've ended up using tung oil, which really nicely brings out the colors in all of the different kinds of wood, and I really, really recommend that. On the bottom of the coasters, I like to add a little touch of class. So, green sticky felt. I don't know why green makes me think of luxury bar items, but it does, so it's what I use. In addition to the coasters, I also made a holder for them, just out of some scrap walnut that I had around, and it ended up working okay. There's some gaps in there that I'm not too happy about, but it was a pretty rushed job. There's the finished product, and I really, really, really enjoyed doing this a lot. I think the spalted alder really lends itself well to this kind of woodworking, and for it being a softwood, I think it's a really good project. If you're gonna take anything away from this video, I want it to be that sometimes it doesn't always work out the way that you planned it to. I mean, for me, this was 2 fails and a win. I had no idea what I was doing, and I didn't go into it with any sort of a plan, so yeah, I think it worked out in the end, and the thing is, with woodworking, you just gotta keep at it. Keep trying something new, learn from your mistakes, and you'll get better. Alright, thanks for watching.